Princess Zara lived in the most beautiful palace anyone could imagine. The walls sparkled like diamonds, and gardens stretched as far as the eye could see. But despite all this beauty around her, Zara felt completely alone. She was different from other princesses in her world. While she had amazing powers that let her read minds and move things without touching them, her legs didn't work the way other people's did. A special condition from birth meant she needed help to walk around. Her people had incredible technology that gave her a floating chair that moved wherever she wanted to go. But still, everyone treated her like she was broken. Every morning, Zara would wake up hoping today might be different. Maybe today someone would see her for who she really was inside. But day after day, the same thing happened. Royal families from across the galaxy would visit her father's palace. They would bow politely when they met her, smile fake smiles, and then quietly tell her father that she wasn't suitable for their sons. "She's very intelligent," they would whisper, "but our family needs strong children. What if her condition passes to the next generation?" "Such a sweet girl," others would say. "But we must think about our bloodline's future." Each rejection felt like a knife in Zara's heart. She began to believe what everyone seemed to think, that something was truly wrong with her, that she was less than others because her body worked differently. Her father, Emperor Thane, was one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy, but he felt helpless watching his daughter's spirit break a little more each day. He loved Zara more than anything in the universe. To him, she was perfect just as she was. Her kind heart, brilliant mind, and gentle soul made her the most wonderful daughter any father could ask for. But the Emperor knew their society's rules. Royal families only considered perfect matches. They wanted children who looked strong, walked normally, and had no visible differences. It didn't matter that Zara could solve problems that stumped the smartest advisors, or that she had powers stronger than anyone in their family's history. The palace servants loved Princess Zara. She always asked about their families, remembered their birthdays, and helped solve their problems. When the cook's son got sick, Zara spent hours finding the best doctors. When the gardener felt sad about his dead wife, Zara sat with him and listened to his stories. She treated everyone with respect and kindness, no matter their position. But kindness from servants wasn't the same as acceptance from people who could become her life partner. Zara watched her younger cousins get engaged and married while she remained alone. At royal parties, she noticed how people talked to her differently than they talked to other princesses. Their voices got softer, like they were talking to a child, or someone they felt sorry for. The worst part was the loneliness. Zara spent most of her time in the palace gardens, far from the main buildings where all the important meetings happened. She found peace among the plants and flowers from different worlds. The garden was the only place where she felt truly free. In her favorite spot, she grew earth plants that she'd learned about from space databases. These plants fascinated her because they came from a world so different from hers. Earth people seemed to value different things than her own people did. From what she read, humans celebrated differences and helped each other despite physical challenges. She would spend hours taking care of these earth plants, talking to them like old friends. "You're far from home too," she would whisper to a small rose bush, "but you're still beautiful here." As her 25th birthday approached, the pressure got worse. In their culture, royal children were expected to be engaged by this age. The Emperor started having serious conversations with Zara about their options. Maybe they could arrange something with a distant cousin, or perhaps find a minor noble who might accept her condition in exchange for money and status. But Zara didn't want someone who would just tolerate her. She dreamed of finding someone who would love her completely, someone who would see her floating chair and think, "That's interesting," instead of "That's wrong." Someone who would appreciate her powers instead of worrying about them. Someone who would choose her not despite her differences, but including them. The royal advisors began suggesting that maybe Zara should consider a life without marriage. She could become a scholar or advisor, they said. She could contribute to society in other ways. But this felt like giving up on the deepest desires of her heart. Late at night, alone in her chambers, Zara would look out at the stars and wonder if somewhere in that vast universe, there was someone who could love her exactly as she was. Someone who wouldn't see her as broken or incomplete, but as whole and worthy of true affection. She began to believe that such a person didn't exist. After all, if her own people couldn't accept her, how could she expect anyone else to? The galaxy seemed full of beings who valued perfection above everything else. But the universe has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Sometimes, the most beautiful connections happen between the most unlikely people, in the most unexpected ways. Dr. Alex Chen had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Standing on the landing platform of an alien world, breathing air from a different planet, seeing two suns setting in a purple sky, it felt like magic. He was part of Earth's first official visit to the Xylonian Empire, representing humanity's best scientists and diplomats. Alex walked differently than most people. He had been born with a condition that made his left leg weaker, causing him to use a special walking stick and move with a slight limp. Throughout his childhood, other kids sometimes stared or made comments, but his parents taught him something important. His worth came from his heart and mind, not from how perfectly his body worked. This lesson shaped his entire life. While other children played sports, Alex spent time studying plants and how they grew. He discovered that he had a special gift for understanding how different forms of life could work together. His research on how Earth plants might grow on other planets earned him a place on this historic mission to Xylonia. The Xylonian palace was more magnificent than anything Alex had ever imagined. Crystal towers reached toward the sky, and floating, gardens drifted through the air like colorful clouds. Everything seemed to glow with a soft, peaceful light. The people here were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large, kind eyes. On his third day, Alex decided to explore the palace gardens. He had brought special earth seeds as gifts for their hosts, and he wanted to find the perfect place to plant them. The diplomatic meetings were important, but his heart belonged to the quiet world of plants and growing things. He followed a stone path that wound through sections of incredible alien flowers. Some plants sang soft melodies when the wind touched them. Others changed colors as he walked past. But in a quieter section of the garden, he found something that made him stop and wonder. There, carefully tended in neat rows, were earth plants, real roses, daisies, and even small tomato plants growing in alien soil under an alien sky. Someone here understood and loved earth plants just as much as he did. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" a gentle voice said behind him. Alex turned and saw a young woman in a floating chair that moved silently through the air. She had the same pale blue skin as other Xylonians, but her eyes held a warmth and intelligence that immediately drew his attention. She wore simple clothes instead of fancy royal outfits, and her hands were dirty from working in the garden. "You grew these?" Alex asked, genuine amazement in his voice. "I've been studying your earth plants for years," she said, floating closer. "I read every database file we received about your world's botany. These little tomatoes were especially challenging. They need such specific soil conditions." Most people Alex met, especially important people, spoke to him with careful politeness. They would notice his walking stick and then talk to him like he might break or like they needed to be extra gentle. But this woman spoke to him like a fellow scientist, excited to share knowledge with someone who would understand. "I'm Alex," he said, extending his hand. "I'm the botanist with the Earth delegation." "Zara," she replied, shaking his hand with a firm, confident grip. "I'm just someone who loves making things grow." What happened next surprised both of them. They began talking about plants, and the conversation flowed like water finding its natural path. Zara showed Alex techniques she had developed for adapting earth plants to Xylonian soil. Alex shared stories about Earth's strangest plants and how they survived in impossible conditions. Neither of them noticed how much time passed. They moved through the garden together, Alex walking with his stick, Zara floating in her chair, both completely absorbed in their shared passion. When Zara mentioned a problem she was having with earth roses losing their scent, Alex immediately knew the solution. "You need to adjust the mineral content," he explained, kneeling down to examine the soil. "Earth roses need iron, but they also need it in just the right form." "I thought about iron," Zara said, "but I wasn't sure how much." "On your world, do roses grow better in certain regions?" Their conversation continued for hours. They talked about soil chemistry, plant genetics, and the amazing ways that life adapted to new environments. But gradually their discussion moved to deeper topics. What it felt like to be passionate about something that others didn't always understand. The joy of watching something grow under your care. The loneliness of having interests that set you apart from others. Alex found himself sharing things he rarely talked about. How he had always felt different from other kids. How he turned to plants because they didn't judge him for walking differently. How he had learned to find strength in what made him unique rather than trying to hide it. Zara listened with complete attention. For the first time in years, she was talking to someone who understood what it felt like to be seen as different. Someone who had also found purpose in nurturing life, rather than conforming to what others expected. As the alien sun set and the garden's bioluminescent flowers began to glow, neither Alex nor Zara wanted their conversation to end. They had found something precious and rare, another person who saw the world through similar eyes. "Would you like to see the rest of the gardens tomorrow?" Zara asked, as they finally prepared to part ways. "I would love that," Alex replied, meaning it completely. Walking back to his quarters, Alex felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, the excitement of finding a true kindred spirit. He didn't yet realize that this chance meeting in an alien garden would change both their lives forever. Days turned into weeks, and Alex found himself spending every free moment in the palace gardens with Zara. What started as shared conversations about plants had grown into something much deeper. They would meet each morning after his official meetings, and she would show him new sections of her incredible garden. But their friendship was beginning to attract attention. Palace servants noticed the human scientist and the princess spending hours together, laughing and working side by side. Some smiled knowingly, happy to see Princess Zara so animated and joyful. Others whispered concerns about what the emperor might think of his daughter befriending an alien. Emperor Thane had indeed noticed the change in his daughter. For the first time in years, Zara came to family dinners with stories to tell and excitement in her voice. She talked about Alex's research, his insights about plant genetics, and his fascinating descriptions of Earth's diverse ecosystems. The emperor saw light returning to his daughter's eyes, and it warmed his heart. "This human friend of yours," the emperor said one evening, "he seems to bring you great joy." Zara's face brightened. "Father, he's the most interesting person I've ever met. He sees the world so differently than we do. Did you know that on Earth, they have forests that completely change color with the seasons? And he's taught me techniques for growing plants that I never would have discovered on my own." The emperor nodded thoughtfully. Any person who could make his daughter this happy deserved his attention and respect. Meanwhile, Alex was facing his own challenges. Dr. Rita Volkov, the mission's lead scientist, had begun questioning his frequent absences from the research team. She was a serious woman who believed in maintaining professional boundaries and staying focused on their diplomatic objectives. "Alex, I understand you're passionate about botany," she said during a team meeting. "But we're here to represent Earth. Your personal interests shouldn't distract from our mission's goals." "My botanical research is part of our mission," Alex replied. "Understanding how our planets can share agricultural knowledge benefits both our worlds." Dr. Volkov raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you're doing? Because several team members have mentioned you spending considerable time with the emperor's daughter. That could create diplomatic complications we don't need." Alex felt his face grow warm. He wanted to explain that his friendship with Zara was the most meaningful connection he'd ever experienced, but he knew how that would sound to his colleagues. They wouldn't understand that two people from different worlds could find such common ground in their shared love of growing things. Despite the pressure from both sides, Alex and Zara continued to deepen their friendship. They discovered they both loved watching sunrises, though Zara's world had two suns that created spectacular dawn displays. They both enjoyed quiet moments of reflection, and they both felt most peaceful when working with their hands in soil and plants. One day, while transplanting earth seedlings into specially prepared Xylonian soil, Zara shared something she had never told anyone. "Alex, can I tell you something I've never said out loud?" she asked, her voice soft. "Of course," Alex replied, carefully spacing the tiny plants. I used to think there was something wrong with me because no one wanted to be my partner. I thought, maybe I wasn't worthy of love because my body works differently than others. But talking with you these past weeks, I'm starting to remember who I really am inside. Alex stopped working and looked at her with complete attention. Zara, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. Your kindness, your intelligence, your passion for life, these things make you beautiful. But my legs, she began. Your legs are just one part of you, Alex interrupted gently. On Earth we have a saying, don't judge a book by its cover. It means the most important things about a person aren't visible on the outside. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. Sometimes I forget that not everyone sees differences as flaws. The right person won't see them as flaws at all, Alex said. They'll see them as part of what makes you uniquely you. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Alex's teammate, Dr. James Park, who had been sent to find him for an urgent meeting. James looked surprised to find Alex deep in conversation with the princess, both of them with dirt-stained hands and completely absorbed in each other's company. Alex, Dr. Volkov needs you immediately, James said, though his curious glances at Zara made it clear he was wondering about more than just the meeting. That evening, Alex faced a difficult conversation with his team. Dr. Volkov expressed concerns that his friendship with Princess Zara might be misinterpreted by either government, potentially causing diplomatic problems. I understand your concerns, Alex said, but my friendship with Princess Zara has actually enhanced our mission. Through her, I've learned more about Xylonian culture and science than any formal briefing could teach. Friendship is one thing, Doctor, Volkov replied, but you need to be careful about how this appears to others. We can't afford any misunderstandings. Meanwhile, Zara was having her own conversation with her father. Emperor Thane had noticed how much time she spent with the human scientist, and while he was happy to see her joy, he also worried about the implications. Daughter, this friendship with Dr. Alex brings you happiness, and that pleases me greatly. But I must ask, do you understand the complications this could create? Zara looked at her father with surprising confidence. Father, for the first time in my life, I have found someone who sees me as a complete person, someone who values my thoughts, appreciates my interest, and treats me with genuine respect. Whatever complications this might create, I've never felt more like myself. The Emperor studied his daughter's face and saw something there he hadn't seen in years. True contentment and self-assurance. Perhaps, he thought, the complications might be worth it if they brought his daughter such genuine happiness. Neither Alex nor Zara fully understood yet what was happening between them. They only knew that each day spent together felt natural and right, as if they had finally found the missing piece of themselves in the most unexpected place. The announcement came like a thunderbolt during breakfast. Dr. Volkov gathered the Earth team and delivered the news that would change everything. Their mission was ending in 1 week. The diplomatic exchange had been successful, and it was time to return home. Alex felt his world collapse. 1 week, 7 days. Then he would board a spacecraft and travel millions of miles away from the person who had become the most important part of his life. The thought of leaving Zara behind felt impossible to bear. He found her in their usual spot in the garden, carefully watering the earth roses they had planted together. She looked up when she heard his footsteps and immediately saw the distress on his face. What's wrong? She asked, floating her chair closer to him. We're leaving, Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. Next week, the mission is over. Zara's hands trembled and she nearly dropped her watering container. She had known this day would come, but somehow she had pushed it to the back of her mind, hoping it was still far in the future. 1 week? She repeated, as if saying it out loud might make it less real. Alex nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. They stood together in silence, surrounded by the plants they had nurtured together, both trying to process what this meant. Over the next few days, something strange happened in the palace. Emperor Thane noticed that his daughter, who had been so happy and vibrant, was returning to her old quietness. But this time it was different. This wasn't the sadness of rejection. It was the deep grief of losing someone precious. The Emperor made a decision that surprised everyone. He announced that the Earth delegation's stay would be extended for diplomatic reasons. More cultural exchange was needed, he declared. Dr. Volkov was puzzled, but couldn't argue with their host's request. Alex was overjoyed, but he also realized something important. The extension was temporary. Eventually he would still have to leave, and the longer he stayed, the harder it would become. He began to understand that he had to make a choice that would change his entire life. That evening, he took a long walk through the palace gardens, thinking about everything that had happened. He thought about his life on Earth, his research lab, his small apartment, his quiet routine. Then he thought about these past weeks with Zara, the laughter, the deep conversations, the feeling of being completely understood and accepted. He realized he had fallen in love, not just with Zara's intelligence or kindness, but with everything about her. Her determination to create beauty despite the challenges she faced. Her gentle way of treating everyone around her. Her brilliant mind that could solve problems he couldn't even imagine. Her courage in staying hopeful when others had given up on her. But Alex also knew the reality of their situation. He was human. She was Zilonian. He was a visiting scientist. She was royalty. Most importantly, her society had very specific expectations about partnerships and relationships. The next morning, Alex made a decision that terrified and excited him at the same time. He spent hours researching Zilonian customs and traditions, learning about their formal ways of expressing serious intentions. He discovered that in their culture, when someone wanted to propose a life partnership, they used specific words and followed particular traditions. He found Zara in the garden as always. She was sitting quietly among the hybrid flowers they had created together, earth plants that had learned to thrive in alien soil, becoming something new and beautiful. "Zara," he said, his heart beating so fast he could barely breathe. "I need to tell you something important." She looked at him with those warm, intelligent eyes that had captured his heart from the first day they met. "I know I'm supposed to leave soon," Alex continued, "but I can't imagine going back to my old life. These weeks with you have been the happiest of my entire existence. You've shown me what it means to be truly understood and accepted." Zara's eyes widened as she began to understand what he was trying to say. Alex took a deep breath and spoke the words he had practiced, using the formal Zilonian phrases he had studied. "Princess Zara, I ask with all respect and love, will you accept me as your life partner?" The question hung in the air between them. In any other circumstance, it might have seemed impossible. A human asking a princess from another world to spend her life with him. But in that moment, surrounded by the impossible garden they had created together, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Zara's telepathic abilities, heightened by intense emotion, accidentally projected her feelings throughout the nearby palace. Servants stopped their work as waves of pure joy and amazement washed over them. Guards looked around in confusion, wondering where these overwhelming feelings of happiness were coming from. "Alex," Zara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Are you sure? I come with complications, my condition, my royal duties, the differences between our peoples." "I don't want someone perfect," Alex replied, moving closer to her. "I want you. All of you. Your brilliant mind, your kind heart, your strength, your challenges, your dreams, everything that makes you who you are." In the palace, Emperor Thane suddenly felt his daughter's emotions through the telepathic connection all royal family members shared. For a moment, he was startled by the intensity of her joy. Then he smiled, understanding exactly what had just happened in the garden. The Emperor looked out his window toward the garden where his daughter had found something he had feared she might never experience, someone who loved her completely and asked for nothing more than the privilege of sharing her life. "Interesting," he murmured to himself, already beginning to consider the implications of what would surely be the most unusual royal engagement in Zilonian history. The news of Princess Zara's engagement to the human scientist spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants whispered excitedly in hallways, guards exchanged surprised glances, and royal advisors gathered in urgent meetings to discuss what This unprecedented situation meant for their empire. Emperor Thane called for an immediate audience with Alex. As the human scientist walked through the grand throne room, his heart pounded with nervousness. He had just asked the Emperor's daughter to be his life partner without asking for permission first, something that broke every royal protocol he could imagine. The Emperor sat on his crystal throne, studying Alex with intense eyes. The silence stretched for what felt like hours before the ruler finally spoke. "Dr. Alex Chen," the Emperor said formally, "you have made a very bold request of my daughter." "Yes, Your Majesty," Alex replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I realize I should have spoken with you first, but my feelings overcame my sense of protocol." Emperor Thane stood and walked down from his throne, stopping directly in front of Alex. "Tell me, human, what makes you believe you are worthy of my daughter's love?" Alex took a deep breath. This was the most important conversation of his life. "Your Majesty, I don't know if I'm worthy of her, but I know that I love her completely. Not despite her differences, but including them. I see her strength, her intelligence, her kindness, and her courage. She makes me want to be the best version of myself." The Emperor nodded slowly. "And what of the challenges you will face? 2 different species, different worlds, different customs. Are you prepared for a life that will never be simple?" "Nothing worthwhile is ever simple," Alex replied, "but together we can handle anything." For a long moment, the Emperor studied the young human's face. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "For 25 years I have watched my daughter believe she was somehow broken or unworthy of love. In these past weeks I have seen her become confident and joyful again. If you are the reason for that transformation, then perhaps the galaxy's first interspecies royal partnership is exactly what our worlds need." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Alex's superiors were receiving reports about the situation that left them stunned. Dr. Volkov sent urgent messages to Earth's Space Council, explaining that their botanist had just become engaged to an alien princess. The response was immediate and intense. "This could change everything about human-alien relations," one council member wrote back. "Either it will be a beautiful symbol of unity, or it could create diplomatic disasters we can't even imagine." But Alex had already made his choice. He formally resigned from his Earth position and requested permission to remain on Zylonia permanently. When Dr. Volkov confronted him about abandoning his career and his home planet, Alex's response was simple, but powerful. "Dr. Volkov, I've found something more valuable than any career. A person who loves me for who I truly am, and whom I love the same way. I'm not abandoning anything, I'm choosing the life I was meant to live." The royal wedding preparations began, but they were unlike anything either world had ever seen. Zylonian traditions had to be adapted to include human customs. Earth traditions had to be modified to respect alien protocols. The ceremony would need to work for guests who breathed different air and came from different gravity environments. Zara threw herself into the planning with joy she had never experienced. For the first time in her life, she was planning a celebration of her own happiness instead of trying to hide her differences. She chose flowers from both worlds, music that blended Earth and Zylonian styles, and food that guests from both planets could enjoy. "I want everything to represent what Alex and I have created together," she told the wedding planners. "Something new that honors both of our backgrounds." The announcement of the wedding date sent shockwaves through both civilizations. Some people were excited about this historic union that could bring 2 worlds closer together. Others worried about the precedent it might set. But as news spread, something beautiful began to happen. People from both planets started sharing stories of their own differences and how they had found acceptance. Humans with disabilities wrote to Zara, thanking her for showing that physical differences didn't prevent someone from finding love. Zylonians who had felt like outsiders in their own society suddenly had a princess who understood their struggles. The wedding day arrived with representatives from dozens of worlds attending. As Zara floated down the aisle in her beautiful gown, her mobility chair decorated with flowers from Earth and Zylonia, there wasn't a dry eye in the massive cathedral. Alex stood at the altar, wearing a combination of Earth formal wear and Zylonian ceremonial robes. When Zara reached him, he took her hands and spoke the vows they had written together. Zara, you taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone perfect for you. You showed me that differences make us stronger, not weaker. I promise to love you, support you, and grow with you for all the days of my life. Zara's response was heard not just by the wedding guests, but broadcast across both worlds. Alex, you saw me when others looked away. You loved me when others couldn't. You proved that the right person doesn't just accept your differences, they celebrate them. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our worlds and creates something beautiful and new. As they exchanged rings made from metals from both planets, something amazing happened. The wedding guests, human and alien alike, stood and cheered not just for the couple, but for what they represented. The possibility that love could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and create connections that made the universe a little bit smaller and a lot more beautiful. Years later, as Alex and Zara worked together in their joint research facility, developing new ways for different species to share knowledge and resources, they often looked back on that day as the moment when two worlds began to truly understand each other. Their love story became proof that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen between people whom others consider too different to belong together. And in their happiness, countless others found the courage to believe that they too deserved love exactly as they were.